All right, so we all had our preseason predictions, prognostications, guesses as to where this season would land for Miami football. 6 up, 6 down. That's the conclusion for the regular season. Welcome to Miami Hurricanes Live. This is our 37th edition, and we've done it a few times without Cam Underwood from State of the U, but we would rather not do that ever again. Cam is our number one analyst. There is no question about it. We appreciate his efforts each and every week. So therefore, I point you toward the super chat as Cam donates his time to us each and every week for at least 1 hour to talk Miami football. Cam, how you doing tonight?
I'm fine, upset that the Miami Hurricanes decide that they want to not actually play well pretty much ever. And, so here we are.
We got to witness another game, much like the other losses in 2019, much like the losses that ensued the latter half of 2018. And we could take this back for the last 10 to 15 years. If we would run the measurement of the roster talent based on the recruiting rankings, it would be fascinating to know how many times and what Miami's record is against the talent, whether it be better talent, which is typically 1 to 2 to 3 times a year, maybe, versus the times that they have, and what the winning percentage is versus the talent when it's a Duke, which has a roster in the range of the 50 to 55 range. And that's what we saw here last Saturday night in North Carolina with the Blue Devils coming back from 14-13 down to start the fourth quarter, tack on 2 touchdowns and win it 27-17. I believe they were down 17-13 then. Yeah. So your assessment of the game, and as you say there at the State of the U, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Ugly, bad. Miami continues to not handle Miami's business. And as long as I've been, talking with you for years, that's been my point. Miami needs to play to the level of their talent, and they refuse to do so. The coaches are unable to get them to do such things, which is definitely not a good thing, not a great sign. And you lose to bad teams. And I mean, obviously, by definition and default, that makes you a bad team. But you lose to FIU for the first time in program history. You followed it up with a loss to Duke to close this season, and now that makes consecutive losses to Duke for the first time in program history. 6-6 against a piddly soft schedule with vastly superior talent to pretty much everybody other than Florida and Florida State, and you split those games. That's why I picked 10-2. But this team continues to underachieve. I am fully supported by saying that Miami has done less with more, less winning with more talent than anybody in the country over the last 15 years. This is a verifiable fact. And, that continued this week, just atrocious. I saw the stat at halftime, tweeted it out. Duke was 8-63 in their previous 71 games when trailing at the half. And I tweeted that out after they said it on the broadcast. And a bunch of people hopped in my mentions and said, okay, well, mark that 9 because you see what's coming. And I said, I can't really push back on that. I can't say, oh, no, Miami's going to. We've seen this movie. And that's why people were so certain of what was going to be the forthcoming outcome. And that was what happened. Manny Diaz today on his radio show or his radio appearance on a local radio show said, all it would have taken was a touchdown in the third quarter. And that would have ended up being a blowout and da-da-da-da. So then my logical follow-up is, so what are you doing that's inhibiting that performance? If you say, okay, the defense is locked down, we're doing all the things that we need to do, all we need is a touchdown, why did that not happen when you had advantageous field position on a couple of drives in that third quarter? What are you and your staff failing to do? And obviously, you see what it is. You see that, you're having predictable play calls. You're having these long developing play action passes with an offensive line that was just getting beaten like a drum. Gave 9 sacks aggregate between the two quarterbacks, which is the most since the 10 against Florida in the opener. Why are you running that? Why are you doing that? Why? How? Because you scored points in the first half. You figured something out. But if you say, okay, all we need is one more thing, one more drive, one more touchdown to blow this game open. While you're looking at that as a positive, I'm looking at that as a negative, because you knew that that Duke team was hanging on the precipice of falling apart, and you did nothing to actually incite that happening. This has been the story of this season. No matter, and look, I've been wrong about my 10-2 prediction since September with this team. Okay, so I know that my prediction was wrong. Even if you were like Mark and you said 8-4, which got me all riled up, saying no, there's no way. Even if you had 8-4, you've been wrong for weeks. This team has underachieved to a level that, I mean, relative to where the expectations were, relative to where the conversation was. Because remember, Manny Diaz was the one who said that Miami had the talent to challenge for a college football playoff spot this year. He said that anything short of a Coastal Division championship was a failure for this season. Manny Diaz's words. Manny Diaz at an event after he got hired, said, you got two choices. You come to Miami and whip everybody's ass for 3 years, or you go somewhere else and you have us whip your ass. Manny, FIU beat you, buddy. For the first time in program history, the Miami Hurricanes lost to the FIU Golden Panthers from down on Calle and 145th. All of that is to say, it is not in a vacuum that I or other fans had these expectations. You look at the roster, you can name the names, Jeff Thomas, DJ Dallas. You get a quarterback with any kind of consequence, that's going to be great. You had a Brian Hightower, okay, he leaves. You get D. Wiggins, he steps up. Mark Pope, KJ Osborne, Brevin Jordan, the best tight end in America. Will Mallory, who might be a better pro NFL tight end prospect than even Brevin Jordan, who should win the Mackey Award this year. You have other running backs, Cam Harris, Lorenzo Lingard, Robert Burns. You got dudes on defense. We didn't even mention Gregory Rousseau before the season, and he should be an All-American almost. You got John Garvin. You got defensive tackles. You got 3 senior linebackers. 4 if you want to include Zach McLeod, who's redshirting this year. You got Trajan Bandy back, who had that interception against Notre Dame in 2017. You got all the talent in the world. Gervin Hall at safety, who Nick Saban flew to Palm Beach Lakes and landed the helicopter on the football field to recruit him. And he said, no, I'm going to wear number 26 for the Miami Hurricanes. I got Bubba Bolden coming over from USC. I got Amari Carter. I got Robert Knowles stepping up to be a solid player. I got Al Blades Jr. I got DJ Ivey. I got talent everywhere on this team. And you talked all that shit, Manny. Loud bravado. Beating your chest the whole time, and you go 6-6, and then we're not supposed to feel angry or upset or let down, misled, led astray, as though this is a failure. Looking at something where this team is 130th out of 130 on third down conversions, 120th out of 130 in red zone scoring, and I could go on. So what are we doing? And I'm supposed to feel good about that? I'm supposed to just sit here and toe the party line? Oh, everything's great. It's like 2001 all over again. We're undefeated. We're scoring 800 million points and shutting everybody out, and we're going to the national championship game. None of that's happening. This is the current state of affairs. And there have been many pieces of reaction on stateoftheu.com, which I tweeted out the majority of just now, and I urge you to go read. There are some people like me, and I put up the Embattled coaches playlist. When a coach is on, well, first of all, I said Manny Diaz is on the hot seat because he absolutely is after this, because he set that bar so high, for one. Then I gave the Embattled coaches playbook and said, when you are on the hot seat, when your grasp on your job is tenuous as a college football head coach, these are the steps to follow to save your job. Al Golden decided not to do that. Mark Richt didn't have the temerity or the energy to do what needed to be done. But the playbook is clear. So I wrote that down. You got some guys saying Manny needs more time. You say other guys say Manny Diaz needs to go. I don't necessarily agree with Manny Diaz needing to go. But things need to change. But through all of that, I'm unwavering as a Miami Hurricane. But the state of affairs currently for this season is dog shit.
If you enjoy fantasy football, if you love Miami, or actually just select your team amongst the FBS schools, you can play any of them at play.theU.com. MiamiMoneyball.com. So you go right there, play.MiamiMoneyball.com, select your favorite team, and you select stat categories, and you select, and if you can project the stats, you win prizes, and the entry is absolutely free. All right, we're in a day and an age, and I bring this up every few weeks when I look at the quarterback stat line. We're in a day and an age when Wisconsin, of all teams, they're throwing at a 72 or 73% completion rate. Teams generally are in the low 60s to mid 60s. I see, and I watched, I really locked in on the second half. I saw some of the first half, but I watched the second half in its entirety. Jaron Williams at 11 for 26, N'Kosi Perry at 2 for 9. So as soon as you bring to light the 9 sacks, which we were all there to see, that obviously speaks to those. Typically, those plays aren't in a vacuum in which, okay, there were 9 sacks, but the pass protection was perfect the rest of the time. That gives strong indication that the pass protection was not good. So that would be one element. So how do you 13 for 35 passing is dismal. So where does the blame lie in addition to the offensive line woes?
Everywhere. It lies on the quarterbacks for missing throws. N'Kosi was 2 for 9, but he had 4 throwaways, I think, in that because he was just running for his life. And he got inserted into the game because he was more mobile than Jaron Williams. While N'Kosi Perry was sacked twice, he stepped out of at least 4, maybe 5 other sacks. And I believe on all of those, most of those, he threw the ball away. It's everywhere. There is no one who is without blame or fault. And I said that last week after the loss to FIU. I say that again. It is on the play calling. It is on the offensive scheme. It is on the execution. It is on everybody. So, DJ Dallas is a very, very good player in pass protection. He was obviously not there because he's out for the year after dislocating his elbow against FIU. So even those guys who are behind him, Robert Burns and Cam Harris, are not as good at pass protection. So that factors in. You factor in Brevin Jordan not in there, and he's the better blocking tight end of the two between him and Will Mallory. That's going to affect things. Offensive line, you have injuries on injuries and injuries. I mean, Nevon Donaldson left the game. You have John Campbell left the game for a while. DJ Scaife left the game. Ja'Kai Clark, I want to say, left for a play. Yeah, just injury after injury after injury on the offensive line, which does not help because, like we've said, Miami does not have great talent on the offensive line or depth. It's that top 6. But you put Campbell in for Donaldson, and then he left in the first quarter, missed the rest of the game. Cam Harris left in the second quarter, missed the rest of the game. Who else was the other one? It wasn't Bandy. It was Donaldson, Harris, and Brevin Jordan coming back from an injury, left in the first quarter or left after the first drive and didn't play the rest of the game. It's just everywhere. I mean, you cannot look at any one person, any one group, anything and just say, oh, they're outside of the conversation of the struggles for the passing game and pass protection and just offensive execution in general. They're rampant. From play calling to scheme to players to execution and deployment. It just is terrible. No, I've not heard anything about Dan Enos being fired. To the questions that are going on the screen. I know there's a family situation involved and it's highly unlikely, but can you see Miami coming back into the picture for Darren Branch after Luke's firing at Ole Miss? Yes. Darren Branch was committed to Miami for a long time because he wanted to come to Miami, I believe. Obviously, there is that family situation as reported with his grandfather being in failing health, but Miami is working to get Darren Branch to come for a visit either this week or next week before the early signing period, which is in only 16 days, and I'm so far behind. I haven't started any of the notebooks that I know y'all know and love on State of the U, but they take time and they take effort, and I have to watch this film and talk to people, and I am in the weeds, as they say. I mean, whoo boy, it is Thanksgiving morning, and I have not started any cooking, basically, is how that goes. That's the analogy. So it's going to be tough, but I've been in this situation before, both in college with term papers and things due at the end, and even last year with these same notebooks. But yeah, like I said, just transitioning to a new professional opportunity and job searching and things got me a little bit behind and whatnot. And just beginning this new path at the new secret day job and everything is time intensive. And I'll get it done for you guys. But yeah, no, there's a lot to be done. So we will see. But to Brian Jones's point, yes, I believe that the Miami Hurricanes have been unprepared for a couple of
Okay, unprepared. Are you seeing no desire? So I hate to spin that on a particular team, any team, because obviously we have 85 scholarship athletes and I believe 105 carried on the entire roster. So to say, well, the team's given up or they don't try or there's not a desire, well, each individual is responsible for themselves. So I think we see different levels of that on any team. But have you seen, and again, players dog certain plays from time to time. Watch football and don't watch the ball for a series of 10 or 15 plays, and you will see guys on the other side of the field not pursuing the ball the way because they're just thinking, somebody over there is going to get it. I'm good. So this happens all the time. But in regards to a collection, a substantial lack of desire, do you see that?
No, I don't. And I see the one thing that I will agree with Manny Diaz is this team has played hard. Even there was a run in the fourth quarter. Duke creased Miami up the middle on a run play for about 40 yards, I want to say. And 40 yards downfield, who made that tackle? Defensive end number 94, Trayvon Hill. If you're not playing with purpose and intensity, there's no reason that a defensive end is going to run down a running back who had literally run and start because he's going this way. You're rushing the passer, turn and go catch him. You know what I mean? So I see guys playing with effort. But again, it goes back to that analogy I said before. I taught choir for years, that I have been and am a performing music. Well, not am right now, but I've performed music for a long time. If everybody in a group has 100 or 1,000 notes to play and everybody misses 100 notes, if you miss them at different times, it's going to sound like a cacophony of people and music that doesn't make sense, because even 10% error in music is terrible. Same thing on the football field. You can have 10 guys doing their job 90% of the time, but if you have one guy 10% of the time, and it can vary who it is, that's going to be a problem. Look at that last final touchdown. Everybody did their job. Even Romeo Finley did his job. But Romeo Finley slipped and fell on that inside slot fade throw. He was the one person out of position because he just simply stumbled. What happened? Wide ass open receiver, easy touchdown throw. Duke goes from 20-17 up to 27-17 up, and that's the ball game. Now, I'm not saying that that's his fault. I mean, sometimes guys fall. And unfortunately, Miami's had a lot of that in the secondary this year. But if you look at all the other plays that Romeo Finley made, he was there and maybe it was somebody else. But that one play, that one time, you're playing that wrong note. You're that assignment for whatever reason. Maybe he just slipped because it was raining. I don't care. But come hell or high water, the assignment that he had on that play did not get done. So I'm not going to say that it's for desire, but sometimes you're just not good enough. Now, maybe that's on usage and deployment. Maybe that's on the play call. Maybe you want to have too high safety on. You don't want to go, man free across the board. Maybe you, as a coach, coaching staff, maybe you want to do a different engagement there. But I don't see guys who are quitting. I see a team that is simply just not as good as they are talented. But I will agree with Manny. They did not quit. They were just bad.
One of my favorite questions over the last few years, considering the play of Malik Rozier, was what would Miami look like if we took a capable quarterback, not a great quarterback, not the best quarterbacks, took a capable quarterback from Michigan State or Iowa State or, a really good player, but that just does his job, nothing dynamic, put him on this team. Mm-hmm. Similar to that, Big Time Plays is asking, and this is a lot of conjecture and projection involved here. He's talking about Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, two of the best quarterbacks in the nation. They come to this offense versus Jaron Williams, N'Kosi Perry going to play Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, the more prolific offenses in the country. Speaking to the coaching difference in ability to develop and run the offense?
I mean, if you have better players, I think that you're going to play better. Trevor Lawrence is a generational talent. Justin Fields is proving himself to be on that level. And those were the top 2 quarterback recruits in the 2018 recruiting class. Some took Fields, some took Lawrence. It's 1 and 1A. Would they still have some struggles? Absolutely. Because the offensive line is bad. I think that the play calling has left much to be desired. I think that the offensive scheme is not optimized for the talent on the roster at any position, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, or offensive line. But I struggle to think that with players of that caliber, of a Fields or a Lawrence, that Miami would not have been a better team. How much better? Debatable. But I think it's safe to say for everybody, whether you're a Hurricane or not, it would have been a positive on top of, and look, y'all know that I'm a N'Kosi Perry fan. You know that I think that he's incredibly talented. He's inconsistent, as we've seen. Jaron Williams has his positives, but he's inconsistent also as well, in addition. But, you can debate amongst yourselves, but I think that there's at least a measure of better that Miami would have been with a Lawrence or a Fields. Or even, just kind of a basic, normal, let's see, somebody who's average. Brian Lewerke from Michigan State, 16 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Sean Clifford from Penn State, 2,500 yards, 22-6. Carter Stanley from Kansas, 26-64, 24-11. I think that there's a measure of better that Miami would have been with any of those guys. I know that you're thinking, bro, those are regular ass quarterbacks in the 30s and 40s of the rankings. Exactly. Because neither Jaron Williams nor N'Kosi Perry, even hitting the high notes that they hit, were that.
I know that there was talk of bringing back Butch Davis. I don't know if that was a viable option.
It was not. It was talk from the fan base. You can't go home again, at this kind of a job. Yes, you might have who's dude who just Greg Schiano, who was Miami's defensive coordinator at one time. He's back at Rutgers. Sure. You can take somebody back, at a program like that. But, Miami's kind of playing on that level. But, I think that, and, Mac Brown is kind of the anomaly where you're at a Power 5 school going back and, running it back for a second time. Bobby Petrino did go back to Louisville and, they hit a couple high notes with Lamar Jackson, but that covered up major problems with that program. And that crashed and burned kind of like his motorcycle did in Arkansas. Anyway, with Butch Davis, that wasn't really a real consideration there. And, Blake James said that he thought that or knew that Manny Diaz was the guy for the job. So even though he said we're going to do a nationwide search after the press release came out that Mark Richt was retiring, 10 hours later, Manny Diaz was hired on a Sunday, by the way. When I was at brunch, I remember my phone went crazy. So I'll say that was either predetermined, like a Jaron Williams throw on an RPO slant, or the fastest comprehensive national coaching search ever in the history of life. And for me, I'm going to say the former, not the latter.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. This is what we do each and every week with Cam Underwood from State of the U. So jump on over to SB Nation's platform for Miami Athletics, stateoftheu.com, and lock it in right here for college football discussion, debate, and analysis every day. And keep those notifications, keep the bell that the subscription is tied to. Keep that active, because what happens is you'll get the notifications of when we are going to go live each and every week with Miami football talk. Recruiting National Signing Day is December 18th, so that would be 2 weeks from Wednesday night. Has anything transpired over the last week?
Doug Emilien from American Heritage down here in Fort Lauderdale just committed to Minnesota after taking an official visit there. He held a Miami offer as a wide receiver, 4-star kid. Might not have been at the top of Miami's board, but he did have an offer from Miami, and there was communication at least. Obviously, after losing games to FIU and Duke, there's all kinds of chatter, but none of it really substantiated at this point, so I don't feel the need to detail those things. But if you are on social media, you've seen some of those things happening or being talked about. Devontae Brown, Selwyn Brown's son, a former Miami Hurricane and my former coworker. His son, Devontae Brown, from American Heritage as a 3-star cornerback. He's about 6'1", 175. He's coming in for an official visit to Miami this upcoming weekend, I believe, with his father, who again played on the national championship team or two at Miami. So yeah, there's that. The big recruiting weekend is going to be not this weekend, but next weekend of the 13th. That's when most of, if not all of the commits are supposed to take their official visits to Miami, with a couple other selected guests. So the majority of the 2020 recruiting class should be on campus next weekend, which is going to be really big. And we'll see maybe a couple other visits coming up this weekend. I know that, like I said, Miami is working to get Darren Branch to come back and visit this weekend or next weekend. And some things are going to have to move around depending on state championship games and things like that, and everything. So yeah, recruiting is always a fluid construct. So we'll see. Miami's trying to get Keyshawn Green, the Florida State commit from Wakulla in the Panhandle, to come down this weekend. Hopefully next weekend with all the commits, but that might happen this weekend instead. Jesus Machado from Champagnat Catholic, Jalen Harrell, the safety who just committed, that's his high school teammate. He just got a Miami Hurricanes offer. Maybe he can be the replacement for AJ Mathis at linebacker, if not Green, or Justin Flo. Just putting the name out there because I know people are going to ask. If I was talking about linebackers, I had to say his name. Don't think he's coming, but hey, stranger things have happened. And for those wondering if ENOS was fired, because, some people were talking about it, according to Andrew Ivins from 247 Sports, I just saw he tweeted that Dan Enos was on the road recruiting for the University of Miami today. So I find it hard to believe that he would be on the road recruiting for Miami currently, right now, if he'd been fired earlier in the day. Although I will say that I worked with a guy once who got fired at 9:00 in the morning at the end of his planning period as a teacher and decided to stay and work the rest of the day. And he's a better person than I, because absolutely not. So, hey, I've personally seen it. I don't think that that's the case here, but maybe.
Talking Miami football each and every week with Cam Underwood from State of the U. And again, if you love fantasy football and you can guess what the stats are going to be for your team in 12 different categories, you can win prizes by entering for free at play.miamimoneyball.com. And even if you're not a Miami fan, which many of you aren't, just join us for the college football talk. You can select your team. So Cam, I know I've asked this question at some point, but okay, we're looking at 15 years, I believe 14 seasons. I did a little research this week for a video. 14 seasons of what I would consider to be inferior play to Miami's 30-year tradition prior to that, and based on the resources available and the recruiting footprint. So since 2006, they finished ranked 3 times in the final AP poll, never in the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They recruit in the best state in the country for college football, high school football talent.
Facts.
Texas and California are right there. We could have some kind of argument, but generally the best. Okay. They have recruited maybe not up to the degree during that time frame that they could have, but they've recruited better than any team in their division since they joined the ACC in 2007.
It was that long? It was only then? I thought it was earlier.
Oh,
anyway, but yeah, I thought it was 2004. Yeah.
Whatever year it was, 2004, 3 or 4. Yeah. They have been better on the field in regards to talent. I think every measurement would bear that out, whether you're measuring from the front end of the career, from the high school ranks to college, or the back end of the career in college to the NFL, better than the other 6 teams in the division.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching has to be the issue. They have had, during that time, one coach who had posted a track record that we could trust as being successful in his next stop, and that would be Mark Richt. But he only stuck around for 3 years, and he made poor decisions, and maybe didn't have the energy or the fight to carry the flag at that point in his career.
Mhm.
So that could be judged in that degree. Al Golden won at Temple to a certain degree. Randy Shannon hasn't been very good coordinator on a number of levels, but hasn't been a good head coach. And now we see Manny Diaz. It's only 12 games into the tenure. So have the players in the administration been the same that have made the decisions over this roughly 15-year period?
No. The Donna Shalala took over as president my sophomore year in 2001. I was there for Tad Foote. If you've seen the U documentaries, tall, fuddy-duddy, white hair, guy, very prestigious looking gentleman. But his final year was my freshman year in 2001. But yeah, after that, it was Donna Shalala. And then obviously we've had multiple athletic directors. And the board of trustees has been largely the same. But no, it's not been exactly the same people. It's been bad choices. I mean, not necessarily, things have not worked out. I understand where they came from. Butch Davis had Miami on the precipice. So he leaves to go to the NFL, and you say, look, we're just going to keep this thing rolling. We're going to put Larry Coker as the head coach, autopilot, if you will. Boom, done. He ends up flaming out. And you say, look, Randy Shannon, he's from Carroll City High School. He's from South Florida. He played here. He won championships here. He was the defensive coordinator during, after Schiano left to Rutgers. Shannon took over as defensive coordinator, outstanding defensive coordinator. Boom, let's get it. I understand that. You have that 2008 recruiting class from Miami Northwestern under Randy Shannon's watch, where you had all of the All-Americans from the national championship high school football team right on 95th Street. I get it. Sorry, they're on 71st. Miami Central's on 95th. It's weird. Anyway, but you get all those guys. It didn't work. I get it. You got the sanctions and everything going on. You need somebody to kind of reset the program, like get a foundation, a base, clean it up. Al Golden is that guy. I get it. You bring in Mark Richt, who had a track record like we've talked about of 9.5, 10 wins a year. I get it. You bring in Manny Diaz, who was the architect of the defense that Mark Richt brought in to rebuild the U, as it were. I get it. I understand it in every place. They just have not gone right. And this is what I talked about in the Embattled Coaches Playbook. I only went back to Golden and Richt because I could have gone back to Shannon, but I was doing kind of a quick write last night, so I didn't want to go that far. Eddie Sewell, shut up. Al Golden was loyal to a fault to Mark D'Onofrio. That got him fired. So step one of the Embattled Coaches Playbook, I'll tell you what it is. Step one is admitting that there's a problem. Is, hey, look, things aren't going right. You see that we're losing games. Boom, we got to change some stuff. Step two is changing stuff, which means firing coordinators and changing scheme. Al Golden decided he was not going to do that. And the offense that Al Golden ran was actually pretty darn good. The defense was just atrocious. That got him fired. Mark Richt needed to give up play calling, fire his son as a quarterback coach, bring in an offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, which means Thomas Brown's probably going to go because he was your offensive coordinator in name, but not actual duties. So you're going to turn over a couple guys and get rid of Stacey Searles on offensive line coach. So you had to do multiple things and update the scheme by bringing in this person to run a spread. You didn't want to do that. So he retired. But that's right at the second step of changing things. Here is where Manny Diaz is. He's a great talker. His dad was a politician. He has that same kind of thing where he'll talk a great game. Oh, yeah, things aren't going right. We're evaluating everything. Blah, 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 blah. Now is the time when you have to change. Period. And so you have to do that. After you do that, then you start winning. After you start winning with your updated scheme, then you prosper. Those are the 4 steps of an Embattled Coaches Playbook. That's how you save your job at a major college football program. It is very clear. I can see it. Other people can see it. I wrote that piece. I've heard from other journalists saying, bro, yes, obviously, duh. But Miami's not doing that. So we'll see if Manny Diaz actually does that. But the people making the decisions have changed. You had Sean Eichhorst. You had that other Kirby Hocutt, terrible athletic director. After Paul D left and passed away. God rest his soul. But no, yeah, the power brokers have changed over the course of time. Obviously, you have a new university president in Julio Frank, who followed Shalala, who followed Foot. I already mentioned the athletic directors. I don't know the names of all the board of trustees, but those are people who are integrated. But Miami doesn't have the same booster culture of, a SEC school or something like that. And I urge you to listen to Bomani Jones's podcast. He did a great feature with Banner Society called Sideline, talking about booster culture. He talked to a bunch of different journalists about this, and people who, even a couple of those journalists played college football. Guys that Joel Anderson from Slate, Marcus Spears from ESPN. It's a wonderful thing, and it really sheds light on the situation. Stephen Godfrey from Banner Society and Spencer Hall were the other two in that 4-part series. But I say that to say they're talking about all this money, all the, in the SEC, and all they're doing all those things. Miami doesn't have it like that. And I mean, there are people at Miami who are filthy rich. The School of Music is named after somebody who dropped a $500 million check my junior year in college to put his name on the School of Music. The Frost family, the Miller School of Medicine, they dropped $700 million to put their name on the School of Medicine. There are people who have money in Miami, but not many of them are using that influence to make the athletic department run in the way that they want it to. So things are a little bit different, and it is not necessarily great. And you really put the onus on the people that you hire as the coaches to have that viewpoint, that methodology, that to make things work. And in the last, multiple instances, unfortunately, they just have not.
Talking Miami football each and every week. This is our 37th edition with Cam Underwood from State of the U. This is MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. The super chat. The super chat is on. So Cam donates his time each and every week to our Miami live stream. And so just consider contributing in a number of ways. Like the video. You're leaving the comments, of course. Share the video out on social media. Subscribe and contribute there with the super chat. So I'm looking at some comments made to a particular video on YouTube here.
Okay.
So Mark Cook, for example, mentioned 34 minutes ago, that was the most complete and comprehensive set of facts and data concerning the mess that this program that I know and love is in. Your time and effort concerning this matter is appreciated. I hope we find our way out of this morass. So to uncover the mystery, I went through some various metrics to evaluate this program over the past 14 or 15 years. And it's pretty astounding to look at what has happened since, again, a national championship in 2001, a national championship game appearance, and then 3 good seasons after that in 2003, 4, and 5, in which they finished in the top 5, then in the top 20, and went 29-8 those 3 years. So you can look at that transition of going from best program in the nation to, well, best team in the nation. Program could be argued, but anyway, the best team in the nation to one of the best programs in the nation and still very relevant on the field through 2005. And then since then, the metrics against very marginal competition in measuring results on the field is very alarming.
I mean, alarming is the word. Yeah, that's it. To the question on the screen about Marcus Fleming and Miami went their separate ways. That's pretty much just it.
So you've mentioned a few times in the last few weeks about making changes, not necessarily at the head coaching position. What would the specific changes be?
You need a new offensive coordinator who's going to run spread, pace, and space. I've said that is my favorite style of offense in any sport. It was the one I wanted to play in basketball. Baseball, I love it when, you had those teams like the St. Louis Cardinals, even though I'm a Tigers fan, but, in the 80s, who would just run all day. In soccer, spread it out. If you're in hockey, spread it out. Football, spread it out, pace and space. Let's go. So yeah, you need that, and that again will just utilize the talent on the team in the best way possible. I'm not necessarily of the mind, however, that Miami needs to change the defensive coordinator, because if you look at the play calls and everything, and I trust others who are more learned than I in these kind of a thing, engagements. Daniel Gould on Twitter, our guy Justin DeTavio have said things, like the defense is largely playing the same plays, calling the same plays, running the same things. There's been a couple more breakdowns. It hasn't been as locked down as it once was, but I'm not necessarily one who says that Blake Baker has to go. However, if you have a chance to get Charlie Strong as your defensive coordinator here at Miami because he got fired at USF, bro, I'm taking it. I'm sorry, Blake. I think that you're a great defensive coordinator. I think that you're going to have a bright future in this job. But Charlie Strong is a demonstrated lockdown recruiter. He's one of the better coordinators around. He's probably at the end of his career as a head coach. He's had 3-4 jobs. Probably not going to get on that horse again. But if he wants to get back in there and say, look, I don't need to be the head guy anymore. I had my 3 trips chances at that. I just want to be the best defensive coordinator around. We're going to recruit our ass off. We're going to get even better talent than we already have, and we're going to whip ass. I'm sorry. Blake Baker got to go if you can make that happen. And I'm not sure that you can. But what I'm sure that you need is a new offensive coordinator or Dan Enos to run a version of spread that he's never run before and run it well. So when you say it like that, I'm not necessarily sure that leaving him to do that, which he's never done or doesn't not necessarily want to do, is the best fit. But that's, to me, where the change needs to be made, because it's a scheme and paradigm thing. There's a disconnect, and I think that needs to be updated.
Tyler Van Dyke mentioned a couple times in the live chat and in other weeks. Some folks are extremely high on him. Is he as good a prospect as some people are mentioning here?
I think that he has incredible talent. He's 6'4", 215. The first play of his junior highlights, he flings the ball about 65 yards with the flick of a wrist, pretty much flat-footed. He does flip his hips on the throw, but it's not like he took a crow hop and 3 steps, and he's just kind of and it just the ball sails. He's pretty good. He led his team to an undefeated New England prep school championship this year, which is awesome. I just looked up the stats. Excuse me, 61.5% completions, 21 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 139 rush yards, and 4 touchdowns in a 9-0 undefeated season. Excuse me. Those kind of stats and that kind of performance are pretty good. So, yeah, he does have talent. He's worked under center. He's worked in shotgun. He has worked, there are reads to be made, and every quarterback makes reads. You might just not have as complex of a system overall. But if you watch his highlights, he does make different reads, high-low reads, smash reads, all kinds of things like that. Is he a day one, play one person? I don't think so. But I think that your quarterback room is made better by having a Tyler Van Dyke, and hopefully, maybe it could be as a freshman, a true freshman, because obviously neither Jaron Williams nor N'Kosi Perry have a 100% hold on the quarterback job. I think it might be a year or two down the line for him to be a player who could, potentially challenge to start. But insofar as, adding a talented quarterback, which again is recruiting rule number 1, you have to have a quarterback in every recruiting class. I think that you could do much worse than grabbing a Tyler Van Dyke. I think that he does have, probably a mid-level, not like a super low floor, but like a mid floor and a pretty decently high ceiling for, his development.
6-7 is the worst record that I can remember Miami having in football during this entire generation, going back a couple generations, right? To the late 70s?
5-7, Randy Shannon's first year.
Okay.
6-7 was Al Golden in 14.
Yeah.
5-6 Butch Davis in 97. And then, past that, you're going back to Schnellenberger's first year in 79 was 5-6. Yeah.
So basically with the loss in a bowl game, it's on par with the worst seasons. One game under 500.
There
was a 5-7 in there, but generally the same neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
considering the circumstances that I know of in just about all of those seasons, would this be a worse situation because there weren't those type of NCAA issues this season like there were all those other times?
Yes, you had a perfect situation. You pissed it away. I mean, I said it at the top of the video. Manny Diaz came in beating his chest with bravado. You say, the ACC Coastal is, I mean, that is the floor for this ceiling, or for the season, excuse me. Miami has the talent to challenge for a college football playoff spot this season. Those are Manny Diaz's words. This year, you have a pillowy soft schedule. You have 5 rebuilding teams. You had, just a tailor-made 10-win season, just tailor-made. And yeah, 6-6, or you lose a bowl game, 6-7, is quite poor. You could easily make the argument that that is the worst performance relative to the expectations and the scenarios and situations surrounding a Miami Hurricanes team since that, Butch Davis, 5-6 in his 3rd year, but that was the year that sanctions really, really hit, and scholarship restrictions and everything. It is a very easy path to say that. And yes, you're going to have people who are going to say, but Miami is 4 plays away from 10-2. Miami is also 4 plays away from 2-10. Central Michigan, a couple plays go the other way, and Central Michigan won their division. That's a rebuilding team. You count that as an easy win. That ends up being a tough win, but they win their division in the MAC. You know what I mean? You look back at that, you say that's one of the better wins that Miami had this year. Honestly and truly, that and the Virginia win, probably the 2 best wins on the record this year. Louisville goes 5-3 in the ACC. You beat them, But I mean, it's an easy path to see. Some of these games where Miami eked it out could have gone the other way, including that Florida State game, which, like I said, that was a crock pot. And shout out to the solid verbal. It was, percolating for a while, and then you hit a couple shots, and then, okay, cool. Like, you go to work, and 8 hours later, your chili is done in the crock pot because it's been cooking all day. But man, it was tight there for a minute. I mean, luckily the defense was just absolutely locked down against Florida State because they're terrible. But things could have easily gone the other way. So you put all that together, it is not a hard mental exercise to get to the point that this is really, really, really a legendarily poor performance from the Miami Hurricanes from top down this season.
I think back to some other contributors, some other guests that I've had on that cover programs that have been in a malaise for a period of time, whether that be a Tennessee, Texas, elsewhere. And there are certain things that happen during the off season that can lend itself to hope. Obviously, you change coordinators, you change head coaches, you have a good recruiting class. All those things are certainly very important. Have you gotten to the point, though, because I've heard this out of some of the mouths of some other guests, have you gotten to the point where regardless of what happens this off season, certainly you're going to respond optimistically to some news and pessimistically to other news? So not saying that, but where you need to see it on the field, regardless of what's said, what's done, that's going to get some people hyped up and ready for 2020, that you're going to have to see noticeable change on the field.
I'm absolutely there. I mean, y'all know that I'm from Detroit, but in this exercise that Mark is talking about, I'm from Missouri. You got to show me. I'm not going to believe anything that you say. Period. Pointblank.com in the story. Just because, when Al Golden was here, you played the depth chart games. You know what I mean? Like, he waited until Game of Thrones started at 9:00, and then that was when the SID, like 3 SIDs ago, was literally at 9:00 when the credits started rolling. That was when he was empowered to put up the depth chart. And you're playing games during practice. Oh, this guy is going to be over this guy, and then like, oh, he aced his test this week, or he didn't miss any class. So like, doing all those kind of things. But then it came Saturday, and then you knew the guys who were going to play played. You know what I mean? So you can talk this game, you can say all these different kind of things, whatever. Oh, there's optimism around the program, and this guy looks really good, and Matt Drills went really well, and blah 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 blah. I got to see it, And again, I am of the mind, excuse me for tripping over my words, that if Miami does what Miami needs to do, that Miami can compete with anybody. the fact of the matter is Miami has not done what they need to do. And you can watch all the videos that I've done with Mark, even from my old apartment with, the couch in the background and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you can watch them all, and I just stand steadfast on that. But for me to believe that it's going to be different, I got to see it first. I just do.
So the freshman coming in, expected to be signed, I guess, is what Antonio Woods is asking about in regards to freshmen coming in this year. So we will see them signed mostly in December. About 75 to 80% of the class do you expect to be signed in a few weeks as opposed to in February?
Yeah, it's like the vast majority of the commits right now are going to sign in December. And then of the commits, like 15 are going to enroll in January, like 13 or 15 or something. Like 2/3 or 3/4 of the class are going to be here for spring ball. So I think that there are going to be a couple who find their way onto the field. I wish that we had a couple big time cornerbacks in this class already, and we're getting them on campus. Here in January, because there's playing time to be had at corner. But yeah, I mean, I think that jobs are there to be had, and these young guys are hungry, and a lot of things that people are talking about, including Manny Diaz, the 2020 recruiting class, they're going to stick together. They have this group chat where they're like, oh, we're going to be the group that changes things. We're going to be the group that whatever. I heard that from the 16 recruiting class with Shaq Quarterman, 16, 17, 18, 19. Yeah, with Shaq Quarterman and Mike Pinckney them. Is the program in a better place than when they got here? Yes, but barely. I mean, it's debatable. Exactly. Mark's reaction. It's exactly. But
they were 2016. They were the 2016 class that
played the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, is the program in a demonstrably better place than it was then? Maybe, debatably. You know what I mean? So I've heard this before. I've seen this movie before. They're coming in, they're going to say these things. But to the question, do I think that a couple of these freshmen who are coming in now can start? Absolutely, because there's starting jobs to be had.
Yeah, the 2015 team was quarterbacked by Brad Kaya, the disaster at Clemson, but to their credit, they pulled together the last few games of the season and made a bowl game. They played well down the stretch after they lost the Clemson game, right?
They played okay. Yeah. I mean, Larry Scott went 4-2 as interim coach. That was, backed up with the Duke win, with the return the week afterwards, and things like that. I mean, yeah, they played okay afterwards, but 9-4 Mark Richt's first year, 10-3 the second year. I mean, 10-0, and then it fell apart. And then last year. But I mean, yeah, like it's really negligible how much better the program is right now than when that class came in. So now we have a new class 4 years later, the 2020 recruiting class, saying, all right, we're going to be those guys. Heard it before. 2016 heard it. 2018, when the 2018 recruiting class, those guys are redshirt freshmen and true sophomores. We wrote a piece on State of the U earlier this year. That class looks like they're stepping up into being superstars. That's your Mark Pope. That's your D. Wiggins. That's your Brevin Jordans, of the world. That's your potentially Jaron Williams's, you know what I mean? That's your Gregory Russo's, your Gervin Halls of the world. So they're DJ Ivey, Al Blades in that same class. There's a lot of guys in that 2018 class who are starting to make plays also. So, it's like every 2 years, oh, we're going to be the guys. Oh, we're going to be the guys. Oh, we're going to be the guys. And there's like a couple here and there. But there's not that 2008, 2009 Alabama recruiting class that's just like whoosh and changes everything. I really hope that the 2020 recruiting class is that, but I cannot sit here and believe that sight unseen. You got to prove it to me.
I sat there watching the bowl game against West Virginia at the conclusion of Mark Richt's first year thinking, I wasn't thinking, oh, this thing's taken off and they're going to be one of the elite top 4 or 5 programs of the country. But I thought, this is Mark Richt. He's got Miami talent. He's a Miami guy. This is a good fit for him. He doesn't have the reputation of working too hard or anything like that, but he's a great face of the program and has all this credibility. I thought we're going to see a string of 10-2, 10-2, 9-3, 10-2, maybe 11-1, 9-3, 10. And this was just going to go on for as long as they wanted him around. Yep. And he would stick around. And that was going to be Miami football as I watched them dismantle West Virginia to finish 9-4 and I think win the last 4 or 5 games of that year.
Mm-hmm. And then went to win the next 10 and to start 2017 and had the longest winning streak in America. We're number 2 in the country, had a real tangible argument to be number 1 over Alabama after beating Notre Dame the way that we did that weekend. November the 11th, that was Veterans Day weekend. Had a real argument to be the number 1 team in America. Honestly and truly, go back. No.
I'm smiling because I can't recall all the scores and where I would have rated them, and I'm sure I did have a top 25 at the time.
But that was after Virginia Tech the week before. It was an 8 o'clock game. That was the 41-8 Notre Dame. And I know people are like, Cam. No. That week, not saying any other time, literally, because, there was nothing like 10-0. There was nothing like, there was no real thing. But that one week, Miami had and actually got votes as number 1, but had a tangible case to be the number 1 team in America. And then shout out to Chinua Achebe, things fell apart. That's just where we are. But things need to change. And before, like I said, before I believe that things are really going to be demonstrably different, I need to see it actually happen, and hopefully it will. But unless I see changes, I don't see. Because if you're talking about the play calling, how's that going to get updated? If you talk about how Manny Diaz is running the show, I said this before. Where's his professional development? My first year teaching, I didn't even have a bag to put my metaphorical tricks in. Manny Diaz is there. Who else on the staff has been a head coach? Dan ENOS, okay, and Todd Stroud. That's it. Who are you leaning on? Who are your analysts? Who are the guys that you're calling to help you be better and do better? Because again, Miami's lost after the bye week all 3 times this year. Manny Diaz has openly said he's changed up the bye week schedule every bye week to try to improve the performance. You lose to North Carolina by 3, you lose to Virginia Tech by a touchdown, then you lose to FIU for the first time in program history. So literally after every bye week, the performance has gotten worse and worse and worse. And that's demonstrably proven by the scores and by the actual engagement on the field. So where are you going to get better from? How? Not just by hoping and praying about it. There has to be actual work done. So what work are you going to do? Who's going to do the work? Who are going to be these players who are going to step up? Where's the offensive line going to come from? Because if the offensive line is that problem, where's the development? Where are the additional players? Where's the talent? Where's the proper utilization? Where's it going to come from? Where's it going to come from? And you're losing Pinckney. You're losing Quarterman. You're losing Finley at that second level. Who are all the guys who are going to step up there? Gilbert Frierson, who said, keep your negative comments to yourself after losing to FIU and losing to Duke. Sorry, buddy, but negative play gets negative commentary. Sorry. But is he going to be your game changer there? Are these linebackers, Sam Brooks and whoever plays next to him, are they going to be your game changers? Are you actually going to close? And I don't think so. But you're going to close and get a Justin Flo. You're going to start him next to Sam Brooks. You're going to put an Avery Huff out there. Like where, who? I want to know. Coaches, players, scheme, deployment, development, alignment, assignment, technique. Where are these things? Where? How's it going to be better than this? And it's not just going to happen by osmosis. What is the work that's going to be done to improve this team and its performance?
Cam Underwood has a number of professional obligations, both at State of the U and running a major site there for SB Nation and otherwise. Donates his time right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, for our weekly Miami talk. So please contribute as you see fit, as he supplies value beyond what I can describe. You guys are here to see it and hear it each and every week. We tapped out at around 300, or I should say topped out would be more accurate, at over 300 on the line. So just imagine if you guys went out there on social media and talked to your family and friends in person and said, hey, we talk Miami football. And if, hey, you love Georgia, LSU, whoever you love, we got all sorts of college football fans on here. You don't have to like Miami, and you guys talk college football and listen to Cam's insight on the Canes, the ACC, and the nation, depending on our topic and what happened that particular week. We'll be back next week to talk the bowl game selection, and as we get closer to National Signing Day as well. Again, we're topping off near the end of the show, so many of you have joined us late, so just wait for the video to post, and you can watch it in its entirety and check out the live chat as well while you're listening and watching. Cam, State of the U. I see the Canes are playing basketball right now, correct?
Yeah, that's why my head keeps turning, in case you guys were wondering. They're up 9 late against Illinois in the Big Ten, or ACC Big Ten Challenge. 2 things before I go. Number 1, I now host a daily Canes podcast called Locked On Canes with my boy Fred Perdue. So check us out there anywhere that you get your podcast. That's Apple Music, Spotify, Stitcher, Podomatic, anywhere. Locked On Canes. So that's every single day of the week, or 5 days a week. We take weekends off from recording. So that's one. Number two, I am happy to announce that after 10 years and a couple of false starts and a couple of death penalties because I didn't get my picks in on time, I am the 2019 ACC SEC Picks League champion. 100%. It's done. There are some people who are competing for 3rd through 7th, but I won it finally. I feel so great to actually have come through and get the victory in this league. We just pick every game with an ACC or SEC team straight up every week, just winners. And I did that the best. So I have the championship and everything. So I'm elated by that. My previous high finish was 5th. But like I said, I had a death penalty in 6 of the other 8 years for not getting my picks in 1 week on time, which takes you out of the running. So there's that. But I say all that just to brag a little bit, but yeah, be sure that you follow us, stateoftheu.com, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at the State of the U. My personal Twitter account is at Underwood Sports, in any and all of those places. And for the other things that I've already said, please come fan with us. Thank you for watching the show, and we'll see you guys.
That almost makes me back off on this comment, but I'll unashamedly say it anyway. You can get my weekly predictions at the link in the description section below. 58% against the spread, 78% straight up all the top 25 games.
Nice.
All right, Cam. Appreciate you stopping by, and congratulations on your SEC ACC Pick'em Championship.
Thank you. I'm playing We Are the Champions in the background. It's not coming in through the through a microphone because it's playing on my computer here. But I appreciate the support and everything. And Mark, it's always a pleasure. But we'll see you guys next week.
And Michael Love, thank you so much for the contribution. We'll hopefully see everyone back here next week. Be looking for those notifications.